conservative, constitutional. It's the Andrew Cooperrider Show, keeping you informed on what's going on right here in Kentucky.
And welcome, everybody, to another amazing week right here on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. On today's show, we'll be going over school districts all across Kentucky are trying to raise taxes, but this isn't anything new, as an resurfaced article from the KSBA, that's the Kentucky School Boards Association website, talks about how to trick the constituents into allowing you to pass higher taxes that could be recalled in order to get past their outcries. We'll go over that. Also, Fayette County Public Schools' financial woes are just absolutely horrible, but a recent school board meeting shows us just perhaps why they're having so many troubles when we see how some of the members conduct themselves. Also, we have the license scandal continues, with many legislators now calling for driver's licensing to be returned back to the counties, but one legislator is not new in making this call, so we'll check in on that. Finally, we will dig into Andy Beshear's podcast. He recently had on Harry Sisson. We'll check in and see how this podcast is going. Just by talking about it and showing some clips from it, we will most likely increase his viewership by about tenfold on just those few clips, because truthfully, the results he is getting, the views he is getting, is just awful. It's truly awful. So we'll dig into all that and more today on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Before I dig down into it, please make sure you've liked, comment, share, subscribe. If you're listening to this on the podcast platform, please leave a review for the show. It helps out quite a bit if you just take the few minutes to go ahead, navigate to the show page and leave a 5-star review. If you don't want to leave a 5-star review, if you want to leave something less, I encourage you not to leave a review. We don't want it. We don't need it. I don't need your negative opinions. I'm just kidding, of course. But don't leave a review, but you can, I guess, voice your opinions. Email at info@theandrewshow.com. And if you're listening to this on the radio, on TV, you can also head over to theandrewshow.com. Once again, that's theandrewshow.com. If you want to check out all the places where you can watch the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Normally put out at least one show, if not 2 or 3 a week. We've got a new show coming out here soon. Once that's rolled out and filmed and finished for the first episode, I'll make sure I let you all know about that. Without further ado, let's dig down into it. So, as many of you know that have been following me and listening to the show, you know I've been watching the debacle in Fayette County Public Schools for some time now, over the last several weeks, months. Really, I've been watching Fayette County schools for years. It's funny, I actually post about it often and go into it partially because it's just so egregious and ridiculous what they're doing. It's like a train wreck. It's like a car accident. You don't want to stare, but you can't look away. It's just so bad and awful, and it leaves a lot of people scratching their heads. Despite this, it does lead to a few people questioning my motives at times. This is a funny comment I got on a recent post I made in regards to it, where somebody commented, and it's always funny when you try to insinuate somebody's dumb while making some spelling errors. I make spelling errors too, but I try not to claim anybody's dumb while doing so. But of course, that would be, well, having foresight to do, pot calling the kettle black kind of situation here. So read this here. This is a comment recently left on a social media post by some person named Craig Price. He says, "You sure do post a lot about public education for somebody that won't make public where they got their GED." Now, there in this case was supposed to be the possessive there, THEIR, but instead he spelled it THERE. So always nice when you're claiming somebody for some reason didn't complete high school, instead got a GED, that you make a misspelling, make a little error there. Maybe we should wonder where you got your GED, but I've not hidden. It's not about making public. If people have asked. In fact, somebody tried to ask on one of my posts last week or two saying, why do you care so much about it? Or try to call me out and say, you have no reason to care. And I politely responded with, I actually graduated from Fayette County Public Schools. I went to high school at Paul Lawrence Dunbar. That's PLD. Graduating from Fayette County Public Schools. And that's not a big secret. I'll bring it up anytime somebody asks why, part of the reason why I care so much. Now, the other reason why I care and the reason why everybody in the state should care about what's going on at Fayette County Public Schools is because they spend our tax dollars, and including state tax dollars. So every single person that cares at all about where their money is going should be giving two cares about what's going on at any of our schools. And that's why when somebody this week sent me a message about what's going on in Powell County schools regarding an attempt to increase the property tax there by a massive 16.5%. This is the largest property tax increase I've seen I think in some time. And they're trying to increase this, according to the reports I'm getting from people in the area. They're increasing this in order to pay for better athletic facilities. Now, what's particularly egregious about them spending the money on that, they're not even claiming they need it to teach kids better, something they should probably focus on. As Powell County schools, their proficiency results are pretty awful. Here you go. So in elementary school, just 29% of kids are proficient in math. In middle school, just 17% are proficient in math. And in high school, 22% are proficient in math. And at least you think reading's that much better. In elementary school, they have just 32% being proficient in reading. 21% in middle school, and then I guess they catch up a few of them there and end up getting 32% proficient again in reading. So less than 35% of kids are graduating proficient in reading, and less than 22% of kids are graduating proficient in math. And instead of spending the money on math or education, instead they've decided to raise the property taxes this massive 16% in order to pay for athletic facilities, fancy new athletic facilities. We see the same thing, of course, going on in Jefferson County Public Schools, where they've raised they've spent quite a lot of money, on updating and renewing and building these athletic facilities. And while I understand the importance of sports and how that team building and opportunities, and I'm not trying to denigrate any of that, I think it's important we focus on what schools are supposed to be doing, what they were created for in the first place, which was to educate children. And that is something that many of these people have seemed to have lost sight of. But while they're trying to raise these taxes, it's not new. It's not too unusual. Actually, this article here from the Kentucky School Board Association in 2017 talks about how to pass a nickel tax. This is a tax that exceeds the recall level. So essentially in Kentucky, if they raise taxes more than 4% on property taxes, that can trigger a recall where now the citizens are able to, they get enough signatures, take it to the ballot box, and have the tax recalled. And so they talk about how to do it publicly, but then in this same article, they say, this is exactly what it says. It says, if you're going to do a stealth, we can help to make your tax schedule and make it happen. They then go on in the article to describe when you should go ahead and pass it. For an example, this is what they say. They say timing is a big factor in a district's nickel strategy. August is the worst time for a board to pass the tax. That's because the 45-day period during which it can be recalled pushes it up against the time during which tax bills are prepared. Plus, other governmental bodies are setting tax rates around the time, and we don't really want to talk about it more than we have to. Ideally, a board should work to avoid the filing of a recall petition, but if a petition is filed, meets requirements, is certified upon the county clerk, the board faces another decision: go forward with the tax or drop it. Board members should ask themselves, do the kids need it, and can we make it happen? While they also must acknowledge there are political repercussions. If the board forges ahead, don't go into it half-banked. go into these things to win. You start the process, fight it all the way to the end. There's yet another choice to be made. However, a special election like that, the cost is $36,000 to hold the referendum in conjunction with the general election. And so you have to make that decision as well. So they go into saying how to time it out, how to publish it, how to stealthily pass this tax, and then if you do go to do it, how to go ahead and fight against the referendum. And it's fascinating to me that they're able to use tax dollars to then turn around and fight the taxpayer who's trying to pay less tax dollars. That seems like kind of messed up, right? Well, maybe these schools wouldn't need to stealthily pass a nickel tax, and maybe they wouldn't need to raise property taxes 16.5%. Or maybe Fayette County Schools, which is now reconsidering their attempt to raise occupational tax by 50%, perhaps instead of doing those things, they should learn how to manage their budget better. But a recent school board meeting at Fayette County Public Schools tells us exactly why that may not be very possible for them to do. We may have all kinds of the wrong people in the wrong place. We'll take a look at that after this short break. You're listening to the Andrew Cooperrider Show. And you're back here on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Robert's Rules of Order was first wrote in the late 1800s, specifically 1876. And it was a guide. It's a guide used to help conduct fair and orderly meetings. And a lot of what occurs within our legislature and a lot of what occurs on, for an example, school boards is based upon those types of rules put forward by the guide. And the entire point was, how do you have a meeting that moves forward, that one person, a heckler's veto, can't hold up, while at the same time provides opportunity for everybody who's a part of that meeting or that board meeting or anything else to speak, make motions? How do we make sure that the chair doesn't become a dictator? How do we make sure that it serves and continues to serve the body? That was the entire point of the rules. And this is something that it appears the Fayette County Public Schools have somewhat lost sight of how to do, how to have orderly meetings. Because we have a recent school board meeting where things got a little crazy here, specifically with this school board member, Penny Christian, who, and this is a quote from what she's about to say, transparency is being weaponized. Let's take a listen to this clip here. It's about 2 minutes, 28 seconds. And let's just hear how crazy this gets.
Board Member Christian.
As a former district PTA president who's been on these committees, budget, audit, and all of these things, let me just say one thing. As we do this work, I'm sensing a few personal agendas. I know the person she's talking about. We received the same email that she did, and I think it's completely unrealistic. And I think it's also disingenuous to imply that this board or this district was hiding something that is completely public. So when she had that problem, she knew good and well that you don't need to get hundreds of pages of every SBDM budget of every school that you can't control and that you can't tell them what to do with. So if we're going to move forward with this and we're going to be truly transparent, since that's the word of the day, let's be honest in what we're getting into, please. And let's be honest about who is giving what information to whom.
Well, the chair said we were going to look back as well as look ahead. So
what we're not going to do, Chair Ferguson, don't interrupt me.
I'm not the chair.
So what we're not, well, you know, that's kind of my point. So let me finish. Let me finish.
The chair can talk too.
Here's what's not going to happen.
Christian, finish your point. Then
here's what's not going to happen. I will not be silenced. So you're going to let me finish. We know, everyone here in this room understands what transparency means. It's being weaponized and it's being used as an excuse. People are throwing accusations out that never happened. So we're going to have this conversation. Again, we will not be interrupted. No, ma'am.
This is my 13th year on this board. You don't know what I've experienced.
Oh, my God. I don't. And I don't care right now.
Okay, y'all, come on. Come on. We've got students in the building, and we need to show them exactly how we should be
We
behaving
certainly
for a
do.
budget meeting, and
We
that goes for
certainly do.
everyone. So let's all take a deep breath. Let's all calm down, and let's all start back. Chair Murphy, please.
No, we're not going to Chair Murphy first. I want to say what I have to say.
Board
And I
Member
need the
Christian.
students to understand that this is a transparent event. You can continue to get information from us. You can ask me any questions you want. There are students here from high school newspapers, and I welcome them to be here. But I also need them to understand that when you have to have a situation where everyone...
I'm not going to be interrupted. I don't care. No, I'm the one running this meeting. I mean, what was that? I'm going to finish I'm not going to be interrupted. Transparency's being weaponized. Anytime you hear an elected person say transparency's being weaponized, they have something to hide, don't they? On top of that, it's the most ridiculous behavior I've seen in a school board meeting, budget meeting. It's some of the most ridiculous behavior. Board member Christian there, on top of her, this is how victim mentality this person is, okay? I'm going to play the specific part, and some of you can't see. I'm going to play the specific part where she actually, quote unquote, gets, in her opinion, interrupted for the first time. And I think this is really important for you to realize as you see just how strong these individuals think their victim mentality is, how much they're looking to be put up on a cross, to be the one being victimized, to be the one that's, I'm being talked over. I'm not getting treated with the kind of respect I deserve. So let's take a listen here to that point, to that point one more time. First, I'm going to play it. And then for those of you who can't see it, I'm going to break it down a little bit here.
Ahead, so.
What we're not going to do,
No, I wanted
Chair Ferguson, don't interrupt me.
I'm not the chair.
So what we're not, well, that's kind of my...
So board member Christian, what she does there before board member Ferguson jumps in is she pulls away from the mic. I'm not going to show you, but she pulls away from the mic, clearly looks away. She's clearly done speaking. That would be an indication to anybody that she is done speaking. At which point, Chairperson Ferguson jumps in, but Christian didn't like what she had to say. So therefore, she was now decided that Ferguson, when she jumped in and started talking, was interrupting her. You will let me speak. You were done speaking, you dumbo. You'd pushed away the mic. Everybody thought you were done. You just didn't like her response. And so now you interrupted Chairperson Ferguson. She didn't interrupt you, but yet you're the victim here. Oh, man. Put me up on a cross. I'm ready to die for everybody's sins. I'm a victim. That's the mentality. We wonder why our budget's such a mess. That's a budget meeting. On top of that, as they mentioned, there were kids there, children there, students watching the board meeting to report on it for their school newspaper. And I tell you what, if their headline isn't board member Penny Christian acts just like we do, actually it's okay for us to go ahead and behave in this way. I guess that's what our school board members are doing. If that's not their headline, well, they're not very good reporters. They should fail that class. I tell you that much. They should fail that class if they don't come back saying, if the headline isn't board members act like children in recent board meeting. That's the headline. That's the money shot for you. What's more appalling about this kind of behavior to me is that a board member, I believe this was a year ago or so, maybe two, named Tom Jones, was quit. He resigned off the board after he came under a lot of heat because he used the words, I don't want to be monkeying around with the budget. Well, as it turns out, they were monkeying around with the budget We find out from the recent school board meeting that was public and everybody was there that the money being spent out of the contingency fund was being spent without school board approval. Ligon should be fired immediately. I mean, that particular meeting that night, not this one, but the one I'm referencing where the public actually came to, lasted 4 hours. They disrespected. You had the CFO of Keeneland there saying, hey, from the Chamber of Commerce, too. He's the Chamber of Commerce, CFO of Keeneland, saying, hey, look, you don't need to fast walk this tax increase. I'm looking at this. There are options for you. And they ignored them. They literally, they now have to ignore their entire budget work group. You may remember, I've spoken about this, that Fayette County Schools put together this budget work group to go ahead and figure out solutions to the budget. Well, as it turns out, they're not listening to the work group because they didn't give the full information to the work group, because the work group's number one response was, well, legally we only have to maintain a, I believe 2% or is it 4% contingency budget of our total budget. We only had to keep 4% in reserve. We have 8%. We got $20-30 million more dollars in that account than we're supposed to. Let's just use that to make up the budget so we have more time to figure out where to make cuts and everything else. And the response to that was, oh, by the way, we don't have that much money in that account. We lied to you. So, of course, they had to disregard everything that the work group said because they didn't give them accurate information, not listening to anybody. And this comes, as they're now trying to win the PR game. They came out and said, well, we're going to limit travel because, of course, they've been spending more than twice as much as Jefferson County Public Schools on travel at Fayette County Public Schools. Jefferson County Schools is twice the size of Fayette County Schools, yet Fayette County Schools is spending double what they are on travel for their administrators. And so they came out and said, okay, we're going to limit travel. Days later, it's on the agenda there for them to approve $46,000 in travel spending. Of course, the budget's in the tank. You have board members behaving like high school girls. Now, that's rude to high school girls. I'm sorry. You have board members behaving like toddlers, like children, looking for a chance to yell at somebody for interrupting them as they're the one interrupting everybody, looking for a chance to play the victim. You've got a school board saying, we're going to limit travel, and then at the same time putting forward tens of thousands of dollars of travel days later, not caring about the optics. You got a superintendent spending money without board approval. Of course it's in the tank. What do you actually expect? Speaking of ongoing issues, coming up after this, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet revokes 2,000 licenses after the illegal immigrant scandal is uncovered. We'll take a look at that story. And Savannah Maddox, representative, has been strong on this issue. She recently did an interview for the news. We'll take a listen to that. We'll have all that after this short break. You're listening to The Andrew Cooperrider Show. And you're back here on The Andrew Cooperrider Show. So, we all know driver's licensing has been a tire fire, to say the least. It's been a hulking hunk of garbage ever since the state took over. Of course, Beshear couldn't run a team to escape a paper bag, so naturally this is going to be run horribly. I've dug into this in the past, of course. I'm not going to rehash it out. Suffice to say, for those of you who for some reason are unaware of Kentucky issuing 2,000 driver's licenses to illegal immigrants, allegedly for a $200 bribe given to the temporary workers that for some reason, though they're labored temporary, had been working there for years, that were issuing driver's licenses for the state, that the state was hiring through a staffing agency. So despite, if you missed that story and they recently revoked those 2,000, well, there's a lot of legislators out there that suddenly want to talk about it because it's a hot issue. Now I got the illegal immigration angle. Here's my chance to go ahead and steal that limelight. But there's somebody who's noticed the issue for a while, who's actually paid attention to what people are having to go through in order to get a driver's license, in order to get their kids a driver's license, in order to deal with this crazy bureaucratic system, this new CAVIS system that goes down all the time. The other day, I went to my clerk's office in order to, and this doesn't deal with driver's licensing, but in order to, take care of business, truck taxes, car taxes, taxes and plates and stickers and all those things for my vehicles. And the system was down. I had planned my day around going into the clerk's office to deal with this, and the system's down. This CAVIS system, once again, put in place by Beshear, rolled out too quickly, wasn't tested. I've dug into that in the past. Well, Maddox has been ahead on this. She's catching some attention now, even though she's filed this bill last year even to get these driver's licensing back. She was on WHAS 11. Let's take a listen to that story.
Problem. Kentuckians should no longer have to wait weeks to get an appointment, drive multiple hours, wait all day, miss work, and then wait for their license in the mail any longer.
Kentucky State Representative Savannah Maddox wants licensing responsibility returned to locally elected court clerks. Her 2025 bill on the issue failed to make it out of the Transportation Committee, but she believes growing discontent over long lines will help it pass in 2026.
And the more local control, the better that this program will be administered.
There you go. Now that this has become political wind beneath your wings, I think the legislature probably will do something about it, but of course, they're going to want to give this win to somebody that they want to see up and coming. I hope Savannah Maddox gets the credit she deserves for recognizing this issue and having filed bills for quite some time on this. However, the way the establishment works, this has now become a hot issue. It's an issue that they created. They'll ignore that. They'll go ahead and hand it off to somebody that for political reasons they want getting the attention. They want them to be able to claim they did it. They handled it, whether it's because they're running for an office they want them to win, or if it's because they are what's the word I'm looking for here? They're running in a difficult primary, so they want to give a win off to give a political win, something they can claim they did for that state senator or for that House rep, to claim that they did something amazing because they want to keep that person in place. And this is the ways they manipulate the voter. This is the way they manipulate elections. You can call it manipulation, I guess. It's not really quote unquote fraud. It's just a way of messing with people like you and me who would think, oh yeah, that guy did great. That guy may have even voted for the original bill that caused the problem in the first place, but now they want to give him that political win. So I hope that Savannah Maddox ends up getting the credit for that she deserves. Moving on to Andy Beshear's podcast. Now, many of you may be like, what? Andy Beshear does a podcast? He does. And it's not going great, to say the least. I mean, he's not even getting 1,000 views on YouTube on most of these podcast episodes. And he's having on big names. He had on like Mark Cuban. He had on governors from other states, senators, and nobody's watching this, which makes you wonder why he's doing it. I've heard some people claim that it's a political win. It's a way for him to network and establish himself with other people. But I said, you know what, Andrew, maybe he's gotten better. You know, we watched his first episode and we're like, gosh, this is just a hot pile of garbage. Could it be better, though, now? So, prepare yourself, gorge your loins, protect your ears if you need to, but we're going to now give Andy Beshear 10 times more listens on his show than he normally gets by covering at least a chunk, as much of it as we could bear, of his most recent episode he did with Harry Sisson. Let's take a listen to this. Let's see how it starts off here.
Let's get it started. Episode 20 of the Andy Beshear podcast starts right now.
Well, I tell you what, just starting off the bat, he seems excited. That is high energy podcasting. That is entertainment. That's grade A entertainment. When I sit down, Beshear, just a word of advice. There's a reason why NPR is not able to stand on their own without government funding, outside the fact that, of course, it's highly bias reporting that they did across the board with their articles and everything else, but also their radio programming and podcast programming is a snooze fest. And it can't stand on its own because nobody wants to listen to it. But for some reason, Andy Beshear took this as a note, as a way to do it. He watched one of the boring NPR shows, I don't know of one, I guess, I don't know, one that sucks, Desktop Stories or something is one called. I have no clue. I'm going to be honest, I didn't research what an NPR show is called. I thought I would know going it, but it just goes to prove how horrible NPR is. So he took notes from that and said, hey, that's the way to do it. Boring, monotoned, no emotion. That's solid. That's good stuff. Let's listen to his conversation with Harry Sisson. Wrote in, for those of you who can't see, this is wrote in Jeopardy font. Let's take a listen.
You're listening to the Andy Beshear podcast. Our guest this week is a great one. Harry Sisson has built a huge following being a creator, and he's doing it in a way that most aren't. He's talking directly about politics. He's talking about his views. He's even giving some good advice to the Democratic Party, which we're going to talk about today.
Andy Beshear just said that Harry Sisson is doing things in a way that most aren't. And then he goes on to explain that he's talking about politics. Literally, political podcasts have been a thing for quite some time. And most of them, this is going to shock you, Andy Beshear. I know. But most of them also give you commentary and also offer advice to the Democrat Party if it's a left-leaning podcast. Shocking, I know. But for Andy Beshear, I guess in his small world, he doesn't get out there a lot. We can tell he's pretty pasty. He's not getting a lot of sun. So it does make sense. He doesn't get out there a lot. You think he would be then sitting on social media and listening to podcasts all day. But apparently he doesn't, because he would know that Harry Sisson, while popular with the segment of the population that is mentally not with it and a little brain dead, is not different than literally hundreds of other podcasts. He's not doing anything different outside of being super duper annoying, I guess. That would be what makes him different. He's willing to outwardly ignore facts and everything else in order to, of course, push forward his belief. He tries to claim in this interview that he doesn't do that. But as we'll see, as we dig into it, we'll see that he absolutely 100% does, because we're going to start hearing advice about, at one point, how Democrats can reach out to white men. Now, you'd think a couple of white men might have some good ideas on this if you want to hear their deep thoughts on this, or if you want to torture yourself more. Well, when we get back, we'll finish up going over the Andy Beshear most recent episode. Very exciting. I know this is a horrible hook to get you to come back after the break, but please do. We'll see you in a few short minutes. And you are back here on this final segment of the Andrew Cooperrider Show. We have been going through torture on the levels of what the CIA did to Al-Qaeda when they locked them in rooms and played loud rock music, by going over the most recent Andy Beshear podcast episode where he interviewed Harry Sisson. There is, I guess, a point to this, and that is that Andy Beshear is completely up his own butt. But anyways, we'll dig back into it. So we just started off after Beshear apparently thought Harry Sisson was doing something different. He's not, but start off. He's just beginning his conversation. Let's jump right into this puddle of acid.
Harry, welcome to the podcast.
Governor, thank you for having me on. This is so cool.
What a strange, for those of you who can't see the way it's set up, Andy Beshear's in a chair with a mic, and he's seated across from a TV stand that then has Harry Sisson on it, which is interesting. I just thought that was interesting. Okay.
You have become one of the lead voices, especially online across these platforms, to generations of Americans about politics. Tell us what led you to this moment and platform.
Yeah, I mean, this started when I was around 17 years old.
1 second. Honestly, outside the fact that I know Harry Sisson just posts some of the dumbest things on Twitter, I don't know much about him. Is he gay? Is Harry Sisson gay? I'm only saying this. I'm not trying to attack his sexuality as a thing to attack per se. I just think that he has some really like manicured eyebrows, like tweezed. I've never tweezed my eyebrows a day in my life, but those look shaped. It looks like. Is he wearing makeup too? I think he's wearing blush. I think he has makeup on with blush. Either that or he just ran like 5 miles, because that man has some pretty flush cheeks as far as it goes. Let's hold on. Is Harry Sisson gay? Apparently he's got a, well, okay, this is confusing, right? Because on one result, it says the man has a girlfriend. It actually says that maybe he was, hooking up with some ladies. Dozens. This is Harry Sisson has been accused of convincing and luring a dozen, nearly a dozen women to send their explicit videos on Snapchat. Okay. But then at the same time, here's a YouTube, not YouTube, a Facebook post from Queerty, who says, here's why gays and theys are thirsting over twink fluencer Harry Sisson. Oh my gosh. Hit us with a meteor now. But I guess, and it's funny too. It's funny that he's falling victim to like Me Too for that whole women saying videos thing. Like, oh, he lured and convinced women to do, like, did he put a gun to their head? No? Okay, so he just rizzed them, as the kids would say. He just got him to do it, right? I mean, geez, guys got game, I guess. If you're going to sell your soul, you might as well get some game along the way. Okay, let's listen to what this twink fluencer, as Query called him, has to say.
I'm 17 years old. I was working in local politics at the time. I was a junior in high school. I was working with my state senator, my local councilwoman, who is fantastic, was doing great work on a local level, specifically surrounding human rights. And unfortunately, at around that time, COVID really hit the United States. And so all these internships that I was doing shut down almost immediately. There was no more internships, and that was kind of an across-the-board thing. And so, my junior year of high school, the 2020 election was right around the corner. Felt like I wasn't doing enough. I was kind of like any other teenager at the time in my basement, scrolling on social media. I saw other young people talking about politics online, and no word of a lie, my simple thought was, I feel like I could do this too. I feel like this might be the way in this crazy time that we're in to really get involved and hopefully spread factual information in a time when misinformation was really on the rise, especially with Donald Trump ramping up his rhetoric around the 2020 election. And so
misinformation was on the rise. Does Harry here say that it was the fact that Fauci and the government was the ones putting out misinformation, like, about vaccines and masks and COVID and blah, blah, where it came from and all those other things? No. In fact, for some reason, Harry still lives in the world where they all were right and we were wrong, even though time has been way more favorable to us on that belief. So anyways, he goes in, and here we get to a point where Beshear, this is really the point I wanted to call out, where they start talking about men
who can pass policy that really just strike at the heart of these issues. And I think that's my why, and why I've continued, and what keeps me going every day, even though we see all these attacks from people on the right, from the Trump administration going after the media and things of that nature.
Well, while doing this, you've also cracked the code in many ways, because your listenership, your subscribers, come from all different generations, including folks in their teens, 20s, and 30s.
All different generations, including people who are 16, 25, and in their 30s. Really crack the code across generations.
That I think both parties sometimes struggle to reach. What do you think it is about how you interact, what you create, that's so appealing and draws people into political conversations that might otherwise avoid them?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really deep question as to how audience building occurs. And I think for me, my mission and my goal going into this, and continues to be my mission every day, is just be as authentic as I can be as honest as I can be. Don't just say something because it's in line with my party, say it because I believe it. And I hope...
Be as honest as he can be. He literally just tried to tell us that, well, the government was the only ones putting out good information, and those mean Republicans were so wrong about COVID. But, you know, he's worried about misinformation.
At least I'd like to believe that that authenticity is something that has stretched through the screen and brought people into following me and supporting me and watching my videos every day.
What do you think on the political side the Democratic Party needs to do to be able to reach back out, especially to young white men?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question of the day.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I tell you what, free piece of advice for Democrats: don't ask two of the most beta males. You know, the most like, oh, okay. There is not a single guy out there that like is a man, conservative voter, Republican voter, person who voted for Donald Trump, that looks like at either of these two men and says, that's the kind of guy I want to be. That guy's cool. That guy's the kind of masculinity I want to be. Not a single one. Nobody's looking at that. There might be some liberal men on the left that are like, oh, he's such a good guy. Oh, yes. We love seeing men act like, you know, complete underlings to women and put on this fox feminism. We love seeing it. That's not for men. To keep in mind that for a long time, it's been widely accepted that it's men put that on in order to attract in women, which apparently is something Harry Sisson did. But that's always been a ploy. That's always been the belief, because it's hard for us to believe any real men act this way. We continue, though, with this wonderful advice. Let's see what their advice is.
That's what everybody's kind of wondering. And I always tell people when they ask this question, no, there's no one easy answer. I don't think it's just a one-stop solution where we create a podcast or we invest X amount of money into learning young men. I think it goes much deeper. We first have to understand the issue, and then we can talk about a solution. So the issue, I think, is things I just mentioned with lack of employment, lack of access to housing, but also the way that many in society talk about young men. You know, we have to start framing issues that involve women also from a male perspective, I think, to convince young men. So a lot of young men I've talked to on the right feel that when Democrats get up there and talk about reproductive rights, we're only focused on women. And I say to them, like, number one, this issue is multifaceted. So we first and foremost care about women and their reproductive rights, but also understand that this issue affects you. I'm sure that at a young age, 18, 20, however old you are, you don't want to become a father. You want to be able to go to college and experience economic opportunity. That's the same thing for...
Okay, so their advice... Gosh, what demons. Their advice here, first, his advice is to say, we need to frame women issues so men care about women issues. So it's not we need to talk about men's issues. Literally, their advice for how to reach young men is to say we should talk about women issues more. That'll bring them in. That's a great idea. Why didn't we think of that? And then they follow it up by saying, so take for an example, abortion. We need to tell men, look, you like going out and sleeping with all these women, don't you? Don't you like being promiscuous? What if you knock one of them up? Don't you want to murder the child too? Now, of course, this ignores the whole my body, my choice kind of thing. And like, it's impossible to make men think that way if you're coming at this from the abortion standpoint, because the left also says that it should be about women's rights to choose. And if you don't have ovaries, you can't have an opinion on it. And it's my body, my choice. So literally, men don't think it's up to them at all in any sort of way. So that's why they don't care. Because you have made it such a woman's issue. But on top of that, you don't draw them back in being like, look, you want a woman to be able to murder your child too. That doesn't ring very strongly with them, because I think at the back of most men's minds, still, real men, masculine men is they do want a family and they want to raise kids and they want to have children. They want to pass on their bloodline. There's a genetic and natural need for men to do that. And when your pitch to them is, let's kill your bloodline, it goes against that natural carnal urge of men. I guess you'd call it animalistic urge of men. Not animalistic per se in a negative way, but more so it's genetically in us to continue the species that we want to pass on our bloodline. We want to have children. And you're asking these men to go against it. And they may not say it out loud. Yeah, I want to have kids and everything else. But that's why it doesn't ring true to them. But they can't say that because you got two beta males sitting here, Beshear and Harry Sisson, the twink fluencer, who I'm pretty sure is wearing makeup and manicures his eyebrows, trying to tell us, how do you get more masculine men to vote for Democrats? Not be a Democrat? Anyways, well, y'all, that's what we got time for today on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Thank you all so much for joining me. Sorry to put you through that, listening to that horrible show. But, well, you got to listen to it here on the Andrew Cooperrider Show, a far superior show, if I say so myself. We will see you back here next week. I hope you have a great rest of your day.